So The Marvels was a movie. Hi, I'm Mackenzie and welcome back to the Women's Direction YouTube channel. Before we get started, a quick extra welcome to all of our new subscribers from the Saltburn video. Thank you so much for your support, I super appreciate it. But yes, today we are talking about the latest addition to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, The Marvels. The latest feature-length film from Marvel Studios is a continuation of the story of Carol Danvers, otherwise known as Captain Marvel. However, this time around we get two new Marvels added to the mix. The first, Captain Monica Rambeau, Carol Danvers' fully adult and fully superpowered niece, and Ms. Marvel, a teenager from Jersey who has her own superpowers, plus an unhealthy obsession with Captain Marvel. Three leads should be a no-brainer given the success of Marvel's Avengers films, yet something about the choice to make the Marvels a team film leaves it feeling a little underbaked. But we'll get to that. You may have heard already, but The Marvels is actually Marvel Studios' worst performing film at the box office since they started making movies. There are a few reasons being hypothesized around the internet, the quality of the film being one of them, yet I feel it isn't the film alone that's contributing to its poor performance. There is a general consensus that the quality of Marvel films has kind of slowly been declining since Avengers Endgame, with audiences becoming a little worn out from this type of content. With the success of films like Oppenheimer and Barbie in the cinemas, it's clear that Marvel no longer have the pulling power that they used to. But why is that? I think one reason could be that their content is now spread so thin over the ever-expanding Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm going to speak about The Marvels in this video as a sequel to Captain Marvel, but the truth is it's just another cog in the machine that is the entirety of the MCU. Gone are the times when each standalone superhero film had its own tone and style. Everything is just one large conglomerate now, with the same feeling, same glossy finish, and with risk-taking seemingly discouraged. And I think this is actually to Marvel/Disney's detriment. The average person just looking for a fun superhero flick is really put off by the sheer amount of Marvel properties out there in terms of TV shows, sequels, spin-offs, etc. None of which have really held the same relevance for non-diehard Marvel fans since Avengers Endgame. In fact, I read this ABC article where they tallied up the hours of content one would have needed to see in order to have the full backstory of the three leads in the Marvels, and it came out to about 16 hours.
Ain't nobody got time for that!
Before seeing the Marvels, I had obviously seen the first Captain Marvel film, and I'd also watched the Disney Plus show WandaVision, which sets up the backstory for Monica Rambeau's character. I hadn't, however, seen the Ms. Marvel show, so it still felt like I'd kind of missed something for the first sort of half hour or so of the film. The expansiveness of the MCU now is just leaving each property feeling a little hollow. What once would have been fun little nods to diehard fans now engulfs the entirety of the franchise. If you haven't caught up on everything, you're still going to feel a little bit out of the loop. Now, to the film's credit, The Marvels does give you a little backstory for context at the start of the film, the cliff notes of relevant events, if you will. But this still doesn't translate to the characters themselves feeling fully fleshed out. Part of this feeling for me as well comes from this new era of Marvel feeling like character arc is a lot less important than the lore. Setting up how the film is going to connect to the other properties in the MCU and which new characters comic book fans are going to be excited to see on screen felt like the priority of the Marvels, rather than telling a good story about the characters that were in the film that we were currently watching. Now, another reason why the box office performance could have been so poor for the Marvels was that it was heavily impacted by the SAG-AFTRA and Writers Guild strikes. A condition of the strike was that you were not allowed to promote any film properties during the time of the strike. This left the Marvels with a very short window of promotion once the strike ceased. After seeing the massive impact a good marketing strategy can have on getting bums in seats at the cinema from films like Barbie and Oppenheimer, it's clear that the Marvels were going to struggle to get people to see the film. But to this point, I remember a time when Marvel didn't even need that much marketing. If it was a Marvel film, people were going to the cinema to see it. I think Marvel and Disney have severely underestimated how much the general movie-going audience contributed to the success of films like Avengers Endgame for them. If they keep excluding that audience with their convoluted universe, they're not going to see the returns that they used to. Despite the average critical reviews, The Marvels is actually tracking pretty well with audiences. My partner's extremely positive reaction to the film definitely demonstrates that for me, as I unsurprisingly agree with a lot of the critic reviews. It certainly isn't the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen. I think Thor: Love and Thunder is still currently sitting in that position. However, despite some great action sequences, some well-executed comedic moments, and some strong performances from the three leads as their respective heroes, I still felt like the film never reached its full potential for me. Some of the supporting cast, particularly the actors playing Kamala's family, fell a bit flat for me, and Samuel L. Jackson is just there at this point. The chemistry formed between him and Larson in the first film was just sucked completely dry in this sequel. And it's frustrating because I know these actors are capable of so much more. And yes, not all films need to be art pieces, they can just be forms of light entertainment, and The Marvels does succeed at that, but I did feel like we could have had so much more, which is why I'm disappointed by what we got. Alright, I'm gonna get into more detailed spoilers now, so if you would like to see The Marvels spoiler-free, click off this video now and come back once you've seen the film. You have been warned. When Captain Marvel released, it was the first Marvel film to be centered around a female lead, and also the first to have a woman in the director's chair, albeit as co-director. The Marvels also dictates another first, with director Nia DaCosta being not only the youngest, but also first black woman to helm a Marvel feature film. However, I do feel the poignancy of Captain Marvel at the time has not been captured in its follow-up. In 2019, my enjoyment of Captain Marvel was seemingly controversial, as was the feminist messaging of Carol Danvers' storyline as told by directors Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden. I got into a few heated debates with men online, with much of the criticism being centered around an intense dislike for Brie Larson. A dislike that has incomprehensibly continued to this day, and could honestly be another reason for the film's poor box office performance. In the end, Captain Marvel received above average critic scores, currently sitting at 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. That audience score, however, is another story. Now, I don't want to say that as a person of colour, Nia DaCosta should have given us a film with a political message in it. That's just wrong. I also don't think she should have been given this bland of a storyline to work with, as it kind of detracts from the significance of having her helm a Marvel film. And Nia DaCosta is super talented, so it just kind of seemed like a waste. In her standalone film, Captain Marvel was introduced as this independent woman who was gaslit into thinking she was too emotional and weak by her Kree mentor in order to keep her in line. Over the course of the film, she struggles to shake off the lies she's been fed, eventually growing into an empowered woman who discovers that she's had the power within her all along, no longer needing to prove anything to anyone. At the start of the Marvels, we learn that she took this empowerment a little bit too far by destroying the Supreme Intelligence, the AI that had been controlling the Kree, and subsequently, unintentionally, destroying their homeworld of Hala. This introduces our villain, Dar-Ben, a Kree leader wielding a powerful hammer who goes in search of two bangles that will allow her to open portals to other planets in order to steal their resources and save her home. However, when she finds the spot that they both should be hidden, only one is there, the other seemingly lost to the universe. But not really, because Kamala Khan, aka Ms. Marvel, is wearing it on her wrist back on Earth, daydreaming about the day that she'll get to team up with her hero, Captain Marvel. A daydream that will become a reality a lot sooner than she thinks. Monica Rambeau, the niece of Carol Danvers, who appeared as a child in the first film, is now a fully grown adult and has superpowers of herself, which she acquired after walking through a hex cast by Scarlet Witch in the events of WandaVision. We're reintroduced to her as she investigates an anomaly out in space. The same anomaly Captain Marvel is currently checking out from the other side. When both of them touch it, they set off an entanglement between all three Marvel's powers, forcing them to switch places whenever they use their abilities. This results in a pretty epic fight scene, actually, between the three heroes in all of their different locations, as they constantly switch while using their powers to fight off the bad guys. I would say this is probably my favourite fight scene from the film, and if you don't already know what their abilities do, it's a nice introduction to what all of their powers are. It had great energy, and it uses the power switching mechanic to create some really interesting fight beats. The problematic extent of the power switching forces all three heroes to come together in order to figure out how to fix it. Realizing this anomalous portal probably had something to do with it, they set a course for its origin and find Dar-Ben on the refugee planet of the Skrull, the shape-changing race from the first Captain Marvel film. Seeing Captain Marvel there, Dar-Ben rips a portal in the sky, stealing the planet's air and causing mass amounts of chaos that the power-switching superheroes must now save the Skrull from. Here, Ms. Marvel learns a hard lesson that sometimes you can't save everyone, as her hero, Captain Marvel, snaps at her, shattering the daydream version of her hero she had in her mind and bringing her down to reality. Ms. Marvel, Monica Rambeau, and Captain Marvel are now all on Captain Marvel's ship and figure out what Dar-Ben is trying to do. They set a course for the next planet that she will try and steal resources from, and in the meantime we get a training montage of them learning how to use the power switching for their own advantage. During this travelling sequence, we also learn that Monica was actually blipped during Thanos' snap. And while she was gone, her mother passed away, leaving her completely alone upon return. She now holds a deep resentment towards Carol for abandoning her on Earth, and the two of them struggle to reconcile. We arrive on our next planet, and Captain Marvel tries unsuccessfully to hide her face, as the planet's inhabitants recognize her immediately and burst into a silly yet slightly cringy musical number, as it's revealed she's actually married to the planet's prince. And the language of this planet is the language of song. They warn the prince of the impending attack and prepare for a fight that soon arrives on their doorstep. Another action sequence takes place here as Dar-Ben successfully opens another portal and steals the water for her homeworld. During this fight, the three heroes start to work as a more coordinated team, but Captain Marvel is still bearing the weight of her mistakes that set the film in motion and eventually get them into trouble. As they try to flee, they crash land on another planet. Now, while this is all going on, the space station where Nick Fury and his team are starts to experience error messages all over the place as the crew begin to find these strange pink eggs laid all over the ship. Eggs that have been laid by Goose the Flurkin, who you may remember as the cute orange cat from the first film with giant pink tentacles in his mouth. Once our heroes learn that Dar-Ben's next resource to steal is actually the Earth's sun, the space station is put in danger by her portal and begins shutting down, whilst the eggs are also hatching. With the technical issues caused by the eggs all over the place, there are only a handful of escape pods left for everyone to get away. So in one of the film's silliest sequences, the heroes arrive just in time to help the rest of the crew be swallowed by all of the baby Flurkins so they can fit inside the last remaining escape pod. The crew running around and screaming whilst being chased by these tiny little kittens with giant tentacles is extremely humorous, and it's also very funnily set to Memory from Cats, which, if you know what the song is, just adds another layer of comedy to this already very funny sequence. The tone for this sequence, though, is just so different to the rest of the film so far. And honestly, when I think about it, each sequence in the Marvels just feels like it was written by a completely different person. It did make me think of the Spider-Verse films and how they so successfully integrate all these different characters with different personalities and tones. The three main characters in the Marvels are very different, yet they all kind of come out feeling a little bit the same. If anything, when all three of the leads are together, they start kind of acting like each other instead of honing in on those things that make them different and then amplifying them so they can have unique character moments. It's the same thing that Marvel has done with a lot of their films over the past few years, making them all feel the same and losing what made the characters special in the first place. Anyways, speaking of tonal shifts, we now get our climactic fight against the villain Dar-Ben, who actually ends up under a piece of broken ship stabbed through the abdomen. Captain Marvel apologizes for what she did to Hala and promises that she will use her powers to reignite the sun and bring life back to the planet, in exchange for the bangle. I was also a little bit confused why Captain Marvel didn't just reignite the sun in the first place, because it would have avoided a whole lot of drama. Actually, we wouldn't have had a film if she'd just done that, which I still don't really understand why she didn't. Anyways, Dar-Ben agrees and they help her up, only to have her steal the second bangle off Miss Marvel, use them both to create a rip in the space-time continuum and destroy herself in the process. Now, unfortunately, even in a film with 3 female leads, we still cannot avoid fridging. Fridging is a term, if you don't know, that refers to often the sacrifice or depowerment of a female character in order to move a typically male character's story arc forward. It specifically refers to an incident in the Green Lantern comics where the villain kills his girlfriend and then puts her in a fridge. So I was pretty disappointed to see Captain Rambeau sacrifice herself in order to close the rip in the space-time continuum. I think it would have been way more powerful to the storyline if they sort of figured out a way to close it all together as a team, since that was kind of where the story was building up until this point.
Oh my god, we're a team!
It would have been a way more empowering message, and it would have spoken to the women support women undertones that the film had had the entire way through. This event signaled the film's major problem for me, which is that the MCU took precedence over the character's story arc. They justify the act with Monica being like the only one who could close the portal, but once you see the post-credits scene, it's pretty clear that they just did that in order to set up whatever the next MCU property is that's going to come from this. Therefore, a more well-formed story is sacrificed for the sake of expanding the universe. So, Monica's trapped in an alternate universe, Kamala goes home to start the new Avengers, and Captain Marvel goes and restarts the sun on Hala as promised. The end. So my main issue with the Marvels is its lack of character development. If you think about the first Captain Marvel film, Carol went on a big journey in that film, and despite whether you liked or hated the feminist overtones, she still went through some shit, learnt about herself, and grew as a result. In the Marvels, no one really seems to learn anything. Or if they do, it's very slight and insignificant. No one got stronger, no one grew closer, no one grew as a person or changed in a way that really meant anything, and I think that's what leaves the film feeling hollow for me. If you're still on the Marvel train, then I think you'll have a really good time with this film. It's still super action-packed and delivers on the comedy that we've come to expect from Marvel properties, yet if you're looking for something more out of your cinematic experience, then the Marvels ain't gonna give it to you. And that was my thoughts on the Marvels. If you've seen the film, please let me know what you think down in the comments below. I've loved reading the comments on the Saltburn video. So many different opinions about the film, which is great. It's why we love film, to just talk about it, so please keep talking about it down in the comments. If you would like to subscribe to the channel, please do. It's been great seeing so many more of you come on board with the previous video. Again, thank you so much for doing so. It's great to have you here. If you would like to see more content from us, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at The Women's Direction, and we've been actually doing a written blog since 2016, so there's heaps of content over on our website, www.thewomensdirection.com. If you would like to go and read written versions of these videos, plus like a whole back catalogue of other reviews and film tips and tricks, and even featured posts of filmmakers that you may not have heard of yet. So go and check that out if you love film and you want to keep nomming on that content. I don't know what that was. I will see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye. And of course, the lawn mowing begins. It certainly isn't the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen. I think Thor: Love and Thunder still. Oh my god, I just glitched. Thirsty.